President, speakers, ambassadors, parliamentarians, dear colleagues, I'm very glad that we all together today here can discuss maybe one of the most important things when we today celebrate the 20th anniversary of independence of Baltic countries and the establishment of Baltic Assembly. Then also we can a bit think about that, how things have been changed. President in his speech already told that we are now mature countries, that we have to take our part of responsibility for the whole Europe. 20 years ago, and a while also after that, we have been behaving and thinking more about that, what Europe can do for us. I now make a parallel with very famous wordings. Will say that now it's time for us to think what we can do for Europe. And I suppose that we can do for Europe more if we more stick together. Again, like 20 years ago, to give our voice the more strength. The more concrete substance of our conference today is related also to the research done by Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian social scientists together. That's one of common efforts. Namely, we produced the Common Human Development Report. And I have to say, you, I suppose, all have seen that, and who didn't, then everybody can have a volume there in the lobby, and it's all available on the internet. And I have to say that after 20 years, really it has been the first effort. When Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian social scientists produce this kind of comparative analysis, because it had been much more often than all comparisons were made by international agencies. We are looking at all kinds of rankings, or OECD analysis and EU analysis and so on. But it's always so that the look from outside sees different things than the look from inside. And I hope very much that our conference today really will give a good start for this kind of inside analysis. Inside analysis is something much different and better than inside information. Inside analysis means that we can make common critical reflection on ourselves and have productive dialogue which give us new ideas for the future. But first, allow me to give very, very short overview of what we have done in this report, and I will start with my thanks to all who have co-authored. I'm very glad to see here our Lithuanian and Latvian authors, because without them this report hadn't been so interesting and rich as it is. And really it is by the official title, it's Estonian Human Development Report because it was commissioned by Estonian Assembly for Cooperation and it was supported by our president. But this report is a special issue. It's a special Baltic issue. As I said, all authors from Latvia and Lithuania are included in the team on equal footing as a concrete authors, as a scientists, not as any kind of institutional representatives. So that we had really good cooperation, and thank you for that. The content includes traditional parts of all human development analysis. That means analysis of economic development, educational development, and then life expectancy and health development. But additionally to that, this report has some specific topics. And I would point at the very interesting analysis of language landscapes that will be presented tomorrow in a panel. Very comprehensive overview of political developments with some very interesting findings about differences and about problems which compared to other areas may be bigger than in average between Baltic countries. And also the interesting analysis of demographic changes, because we know that demographic change really now is the hottest issue. When we look at our societies, then we have the common issues with all others in Europe, aging, but we have a specific very, very hot and really painful problem connected with outflow of labor force and brain drain. So that's also connected with demographic issues. And in the last chapter, or last substantial chapter, chapter 7, there will be presented scenarios for Baltic cooperation in the framework of the regional Nordic Baltic and also the broader European cooperation. Tomorrow we will have opportunity to discuss that. And as I said already, this conference really is meant to give some sort of mental push for development of that cooperation. Now, if we look at the global map of human development, that's a new one. That's a 2011. And we have to know that the United Nations, in this sense, is a very dynamic organization. Not in all areas, but in this area of reporting, it's very dynamic. That means that it's recalculating every year all rankings, and every year we get some surprise. And when we compare now what is written in this report based on 2010 statistics of United Nations, then there we saw that the classification of countries by the level of human development put Estonia in the first quarter with a very high development, and it is said in the report that Latvia and Lithuania are on the verge of that, but still in the next one, in the second quarter, with a high human development. Now opening the new report, or looking at the internet, and it came just a couple of weeks ago, you can see that Latvia and Lithuania also are included in the group of very high development countries, together with almost all other EU members. From EU members, only Bulgaria and Romania remain in the second group, and there also are Russia and all other previous Soviet republics. So that we are now all three happily in the group of very high development countries. The development itself haven't been remarkable. The numbers of the situation are the same. The question is just that in the 2010 report there was 169 countries, now there is 187, and that means that in 25% just belong more countries. And that's always a problem with statistics. You have to know how things are defined and classified in order to make the proper assessments. So it's a warning for journalists not to give very big value to that convention. Then, really our question when we did this research was, 20 years ago we were so convinced that there is a Baltic way. There was a Baltic chain, there was a Baltic way conferences, there was a common talk about the Baltic model, and it wasn't questioned, it wasn't taken as some problem, as an issue or goal. It was taken for granted forever. Now, during 20 years, we have experienced that there are a lot of differences, a lot of different obstacles, a lot of different problems to overcome. And so we wanted to make more precise comparisons and to have the answer. Do we have now, after 20 years, still reason to speak about the Baltic way, to speak about some Baltic commonality in the kind of development we have had? And when you now look at those figures and tables in this report, then you can really discover that there is a pattern. The other thing is, do we like this pattern? Is it that Baltic model we want to be proud of, or it's a Baltic model which you would like to change? And here the first figure shows the three main components of the human development index. The line, the yellow line, is showing the component of the economic development, that's GDP per capita. And the range of countries is, the first is Sweden, the next is Germany, then Finland, then Denmark. Then they're coming Estonia, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and we included Russia just for context and comparison. And what you see that this yellow line is going quite straight on plateau, high plateau, joining or seeing similarities between Nordic countries and Germany as highly developed countries, and then it drops down quite sharply, blop. And there again the plateau, but it's a lower plateau of Estonia, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania. That means that our main challenge is just bluntly said, it's just the problem of material economic resource for development. But that's not the only one. That's not the only difference. When you now look at the bars, then this purple or dark red bar, it's life expectancy bar. And here we can see that the life expectancy is very different in different countries. And if you look at the life expectancy bar in Estonia, then it's lower than in Poland, but it's higher than in Lithuania and Latvia. And that's a development of the last 5–10 years. Because after the restoration of independence, after the so-called transition shock, we all suffered of the very, very deep crisis concerning life expectancy. And we know that there was a very big drop in birth rate and very big drops or really big crises in the different causes of deaths, diseases, and so on. During 10 years, we have improved this approximately by five years. That's a very good achievement. Now the blue bar is education. And education is measured here by the schooling years. And here we see again a very big difference between Poland and Baltic countries. And here Estonia have achieved almost the same level as, and in some cases the higher level than the rich countries in the neighborhood. So we can say that that's not the all-around difference in favor of the richer countries, but there are situations where we can say that we have, in some areas, achieved more. But now, when, as I said, we have Russia as a context, and this context is important because in the moment of the solution of Soviet Union, really, for example, looking at education and life expectancy, there the data were quite similar to all because that was very standard system. So the difference, looking at those bars, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia versus Russia, we really see the real outcome, the positive impact of our development during 20 years. Now, when we look at the more long-term picture, and you could take this United Nations statistical report, and as I said, they are recalculating every year the picture, and so we can look also back, because they are recalculating also statistics from earlier years and earlier decades. And then here from report of 2010, there are figures starting from 1980 for 30 years. And why this is important picture? Because here we see that 3 Baltic countries, the lines are everywhere, so that the dark blue is the Estonian line, the green one is the Lithuanian line, and the red one is the Latvian line. The same with bars. So these 3 lines, they are like tracks of 3 skiers on the snow, who are really making the same way, the same pattern. The quite deep drop in 90s, and then the slow rise again higher and higher. What's the difference? Estonian line is a bit ahead of 2 others, but the pattern is really the same. And that is very profound and comprehensively analyzed in the first chapter by my dear colleague Zenonas Norkus from Vilnius University, analyzing how did it happen, why there are those different say, tempos, but again, from other side, why we really in general have followed the same track. The difference is in bars, and bars are reflecting the subjective evaluations, satisfaction with developments. And here what is interesting and what is intriguing, most intriguing, that even if those lines are going in parallel, but the bars reflecting satisfaction are not going in parallel. You see that there are very big differences between the blue bar of Estonia, green bar of Lithuania, and red bar of Latvia. And you see that the Estonian bar sometimes is going higher, even before the economic development had achieved great success. And from other side, in contrast, the Latvian red bar sometimes is much lower than the real development achieved. So there's a kind of this optimism, pessimism, or some popular mentality, or maybe also media, or some other cultural factors, or some political factors, which have produced this, not just pure relation between the economic growth and then growth and satisfaction, but much more complicated things. And I suppose the human development approach really in this sense is a very good one, and it is giving us much more rich picture of our development, because it is relating this objective side and the subjective side, the people's emotions, mentality, values, with the so-called hard side of development. And there are a lot of things which need a special analysis. What is really very hard and very objective is the difference in the personal incomes. And here you can compare the level of wages in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. So the Lithuania is the first one. Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, and Estonia. And then it's European Union in general, and European 15, the old Europe. And then Finland, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And you see it's a percentage from the European average to have this opportunity to compare. And yes, we can listen also. Professor Ostlund in his presentation said that now during crisis, Baltic countries have say made very positive changes. They have reduced the labor cost. Nice, but what it means for people? That means a lower wages, even lower wages than earlier, even bigger gap than earlier, even bigger pressure for outflow of labor from our countries to the richer countries. And here we have really the most hard challenge. And again, I refer to the statement of Professor Ostlund that now the challenge for the coming years is really how to break out from this group of middle-income countries. Now, middle income, yes, compared to very low-income countries. And to join the European core with a high income, not only of general economy, but of every citizen. And that is this gap, what we have to overcome later or earlier. But we cannot overcome so that we just raise wages. We have to raise or change something else. We have to change the model of our economic practices, the whole way how society is functioning. And that's what about human development also is about. Now, when we see or ask for the common features of Baltic countries, then we can find common features not only in low wages, but also in some other more sad sides of our development. And we are steadily in the end of ranking order of European countries by the level of social expenditures. If in political rhetoric, quite often we hear that, oh, that's our big advantage, that's our big advantage. That, oh, Finland and Denmark and Sweden, they are spending so much on social expenditure, they are collapsing, they are in catastrophe. Then when we look at the World Economic Forum, the World Competitiveness Report, when we look at the other economic rankings, then we see that the same countries, Nordic countries in catastrophe, really are in the top 10 of countries with economic development. So I am not arguing that we have to take mechanically the level of expenditures, but I am asking, looking at those figures and looking at satisfaction and so on, what could be the solution? How we can go, how we can find our own model, and that could be also one of the main topics of next, or the second panel today, and we will have the presentation of that, and I suppose that it could be one of most intriguing questions for whole Europe. How to reach sustainable model, really a new model, sustainable model of social protection, which give people decent living standard and security, but will not overburden budgets with expenditures which are maybe not needed, which are really maybe over-exaggerated for reasons of historical or cultural kind. Now, when we try to generalize the Baltic specificity, then comparing to this northeast or Central European countries which have shared with us the destiny of belonging to so-called communist or socialist camp, camp in the full sense of the word, then we see that Poland, or even more Slovenia, or even Czech Republic, Slovakia, in many rankings, also in human development ranking, they are ahead of us. And also economically, many of them are doing better. But if now we compare the conditions where we started 20 years ago, then we have to take into account that our three countries are only ones who not only belong to the camp in terms of the classification, but we were inside wired walls, and we cannot go out, and we cannot develop our own system of taxes, our own system of institutions, our system of social protection, and so on. So when we broke out, then really we had to rebuild from scratch almost everything in our institutional system. 100% of our financial system, currency, 100% of our legal and economic system. And that means that our not only costs, but also our efforts needed were much, much more higher than in other post-communist countries. And at the same time, we have other common features which are not all favorable. For example, smallness of our countries. Smallness of countries really could be understood in two different ways. One is really coming from idea that, for example, in economy, we have this economy of scale, and always the bigger inner markets, the bigger labor resources, and so on, they are guarantees for success. Now, during crisis, what was said again by Professor Oswald, I suppose, and he was right here, we have to think about that. Small countries have shown that they could be more effective. They could be more dynamic. They could be more flexible. And I suppose that one of our common challenges for the future, three Baltic countries and all other small countries, we can learn from our Nordic neighbors, they are small also, but there are more small countries in the European Union, is how to turn smallness in smartness. How to use the smallness for the more effective development. And there are special things to do, and it is problem of the common and concrete reflection and analysis. You cannot just say that we can do this and that. We have to ask how to do that, how to turn smallness into smartness. Then we have been hit very strongly by this trauma of transition. I will not stop on that. It's quite a special topic, but I hope have overcome it almost today. Still there are things, but I will not stop at that. But then one of legacies, which again bring Baltic countries, especially Estonia and Latvia, on a very unfavorable situation, that is ethnic heterogeneity, which was born during Soviet occupation. And that is a legacy which is really very hard to overcome. We see how in very different spheres, not only in spheres of inter-ethnic relations, not only in this very really narrow field, but also in whole social policy, for example. Even in economic policy, when we look at Latvia, and again in the chapter written by my colleagues in Anas Norkus, it's pointed there that it's a different situation in Estonia and Latvia when we compare, not figures, but the structural situation concerning minorities. So there are a lot of problems which are not common and which are not known even by other countries in Europe, but we can overcome. And maybe now Europe is starting to understand that really those problems maybe are for them also not only of some kind of ethnographic or distant importance, but maybe also we can show some positive solutions in that. Then what have been pointed out also by other analysts in the West is that in Baltic countries we have very low level of social mobilization and weak civil society, and that's a real problem. But at the same time, when we look again at the crisis situation, it also has been said that it is an advantage, that our people are more able to be patient and to come along with changes, even painful changes. Maybe this counter-mobilization could have prevent our this quick adjustment. So it's a quite ambiguous thing. And what is and we still and will remain with us. That's our location as a borderland between east and west on the border with Russia. And here we cannot learn from Finland. Finland have been all history also on this borderland, but it was different time and different problems, different threats, different pains, but also different advantages Finland could take from that. We are in different situations. We have different challenges here, but we have to cope with the situation. And not only with the answers which are connected with this quite, again, ambiguous notion of securitization of the whole political life. The securitization is produced by this border position, but it couldn't be always productive. But we have also some very important positive factors. And I will repeat what we all know. That's EU integration have helped us a lot to bring together our strengths. Support of Nordic countries have been really very valuable. Without that support, without this regional cooperation, we couldn't come to the point we are now. We have had fabulous inflow of foreign investments due to several steps done in the early 90s. And we have this Russian challenge also as some positive factor, because if you have all time this feeling that you have to keep your strengths together and to move on because of this kind of challenge, then it's also motivating. It's not only strengthening, sometimes it's strongly motivating. And we have very specific internal factors, meaning, again, that they could be ambiguous. From one side, we have very strong will for catching up. We have very strong national feeling that we have to do better than others. We have to catch up on Nordic neighbors. We have to be equal with them. That is a very strong motivation, not only for states, but also for individuals. But from other side, it's called so-called nation liberalism by researchers like Henry Fott, who will speak tomorrow of the clip, and then show that it cannot last forever. That, for example, for younger generation, it is not working anymore. They have different values, different understanding of the relations between state and individual. And the individualism, which have been developing very, very quickly in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, really, and this kind of competitive orientation, very strong in Estonia, have been very, very helpful. But on the other side, it have contributed to the social differentiation, to the division of society into winners and losers. And so we have to understand and reflect on both sides, the positive and negative side of those factors. As already I said, that it was said also earlier, that economic crisis in some way tested and proved sustainability of our development. And we can go on now with maybe more confidence, knowing that as in the 90s, we can cope with very, very difficult situations. Here, I think that this famous picture, which was published in The Economist, really, it's from one side, it's interesting that it is very similar to this development pattern when we had this drop early 90s and then we raised on the other side of this drop. That this will be something genuinely Baltic, or generally maybe for this kind of small countries also characteristic, that this dynamical adjustment to the situation. Now, when we look at the subjective side, the life satisfaction, then it is also the fresh global map. And here we can see that here we maybe have the not very serious things to think about. If on this previous map of general human development, where the objective side also was included, we belong to the same big group with other members of the EU, as I said, with Tallinn, Lithuania, and Bulgaria. Then on this map of life satisfaction, we see that there is a very sharp contrast, very sharp division in our region between the Nordic countries, which are dark blue with the highest level of life satisfaction in the world, and the other side, the Finnish Gulf, which is as red as Russia, in terms that the red side is the low life satisfaction. Estonia is so small that I don't know if you see that Estonia is not the dark red. Estonia is more orange, more yellow, meaning that the life satisfaction in Estonia is higher than in neighboring countries. And here we see that really Nordic countries and Northern America are leading on this map as high life satisfaction countries. And our place here, I don't think that it's satisfying for ourselves. And more details, the survey we did in the framework of this Human Development Report illustrated the problem with satisfaction. We had in the survey, it was done in April this year, in all three countries with the same questions. The first question was very simple: are you glad or are you sad? Looking at the 20-year developments in your country. And here the orange bar is those who are glad, and the dark bar shows those who are sad. And the white one, they say don't know. And first is Estonia, next is Latvia, and the third is Lithuania here. I have to admit that the survey was done in a very unfortunate time for Latvia. It was in April, and there was really quite difficult situation. So we have to correct the picture looking at the timing. But anyway, if we look at the same kind of questionnaires we have done years earlier, Richard Rose, in his New European Barometer, have also used the same question. Then this difference between Estonia and our southern neighbors is really quite permanent. And maybe that's one of secrets why this the line, the economic development line of Estonia have been a bit more high and quick, more optimism. I will not speak here about national psychology. I don't think that that's much to do with some genuine national psychology. But here is something what only social scientists can explain. The mood, the optimistic or pessimistic mood, the kind of expectations, the kind of disappointments, how it's connected with what have what have really happened. And if you look at the political chapter of our report, if you look at economic, the economic reform sub-chapter of our report, if you look at the health policy chapter of our report, then you can maybe describe some details or some points which could be behind these different attitudes. Satisfaction with economic situation in own family is not satisfying at all in all countries. Because if you have 25% Estonia, 27 in Lithuania, and 14 in Latvia, then again I said Latvia was a very bad time, who say that the economic situation of my family is bad, that I barely cope, then I don't think that, we could be satisfied with this situation. Good are saying 30% in Estonia, 11 then in Latvia, 24 in Lithuania. And especially worrying was the result that answer the question, what was the economic situation of the family 20 years ago? In Estonia, 41 said it was better, it was good. 58 said the same in Latvia, and 46 in Lithuania. It doesn't mean that real situation was better. No. But it means that in memories of people, in attitudes of people, there is this kind of frame. And again, we have to ask why this kind of frame is there. Why everybody in Soviet time was equally poor, equally lacking resources, equally lacking opportunities, and people always answer looking at the neighbors. And that's really one of very reasonable explanations. But we have to take it also from other side, that this kind of thing could be used in all kinds of manipulations, all kinds of propaganda and so on. And it's for some groups, like older people, for example, it's something which is for them quite say, lively memory. If we ask about optimism for future, then we see that optimism is really quite big in Estonia, 49%, and 1/3 of Latvian Lithuanians also are convinced that after 5 years we will be all better off. Looking now at European forecasts and international forecasts, I think that this kind of optimism, or say savings in optimism, the bank of optimism is very important to overcome all troubles which could come. And now the final point, which is really very important, indecisive point. We asked, are you sure that the future of yours and your children will be connected with the country where you are now, with your own home country? And here we see that confidence in that my family will be related, will be living here in future, it's not so strong. In Estonia, 61%, Latvia, Lithuania, 48 are certainly confirmed that their family will be in future also related with the country. It doesn't mean, again, any sociologist will not say that it will mean that namely this percent will remain or that percent will leave. No. The meaning is other. The meaning is that there is some lack of certainty, there is some lack of confidence. And if there is this kind of situation, this means that some event, some wrongly made decision or choice, some bad news really can influence people more than in the situation where they are confident and feel themselves strongly embedded in old soil. And that is something to do with human development, that is something to do with quality of life, with quality of participation in politics, with democracy, with economic development perspectives, and also with this confidence that whole country and all three countries, they are valuable members of the European community, and they have their own very, say, important future there. So, we can formulate on all this, based on all these, some common challenges. And the major or general one for this conference also is how we can overcome the gap. But it is related to the economic challenge, how we can turn on this track of innovative knowledge economy, which can give us this opportunity to have higher incomes and to improve human development. It is connected from other side with coherence and participation in society, because then we have more social capital to invest, not only money, but also developments based on mutual trust, on cooperation, on clustering, and so on. It could then lead to quality of life, which is better, and give better life satisfaction reasons to people, and then to stop the outflow of young people. And here we come then to this final issue. Should we follow here the examples of Nordic countries, looking what they were 40 years ago, 30 years ago, and try to catch up on the same road, or we find our own model, own track? And when we want to answer that, when we want to make our efforts effective, then I suppose we could discuss the goals, the new goals for further Nordic-Baltic cooperation, namely Nordic-Baltic. I very much like the NB8 to have this one common frame. Starting with modern infrastructure development, we are hoping to have the sustainable energy system. We know that in our also analysis made in report in the chapter of cooperation, we see that there still are unsolved problems, and we all know that there are. But here, anyway, it's very important as well. But the next thing, how we can join efforts in research and development, in higher education, to reach a higher level of quality, to have some common space here, more effective cooperation, more brains, because we have shortage of human resources, shortage of brains. How to produce or to create really sustainable healthcare and self-protection model for Baltic countries. Our analysis in the report showed that we have really followed quite the same way. We have found the same solution with some different elements. Maybe we can more learn from shortcomings of each other and shortcomings of other countries, and then develop the system which is sustainable for our situation, our small countries with our own problems. How to improve democratic and effective governance? Here we come to the problem of administrative reforms not solved in none of our three countries. And how to develop something which we can call the Nordic-Baltic brand of small and smart society, which could be something which is attractive from outside but also attractive for ourselves, so that we can be proud that we are living in the area where there is a very specific kind of relation between people, the family relations, the quality of services, relations between nature and people, relations between culture and people, and so on. I suppose that we are here different from Nordic countries, and I think that we have a lot of good things also. Not only we have to be all the time thinking how we can catch up, but maybe there is something we also can give and share, which are more valuable. Maybe we have preserved some nice things, some values which have been maybe overcome too easily in the West. So I think there are things to discuss, there are things to create, there are things, there are base on which to build up our cooperation, and I hope that with our conference we reach here at least some concrete ideas, some concrete ways how to develop this